I was going through a very interesting article by Mr. Sibal on his Substack publication. He has done some tweets on that also called the Sibal Brief. This article had a very interesting angle of how Pakistan effectively has the nuclear bomb which has been enabled by China and the US perspective on it and the complexity of India. After reading that, I reached out to Mr. Sibal and requested him for his time to delve into it in detail. Those of you who want to read the original articles and other articles can please go on the Substack and read also. Thank you, sir, for taking out time and joining.
My pleasure, Ishkaran.
So, if I may put the tweet on screen, US Pakistan China triangle remains a central factor in India's securities calculus. So, sir, what is how do you see this as a challenge for India? How does India deal with it? It looks like a desk or a dice which is completely loaded against India when you talk about US, China, and Pakistan all having some sort of an alliance, sir. And what is the alliance also?
See, the thing is that if you look at the entire uh, security situation of India over the years, then in terms of the positives and negatives, you make an assessment which are the countries or which is a combination of countries which presents the severest security challenge to India. Then I think it is quite clear that it is Pakistan, China, and the United States. Now, Europe is not in the same category, and Russia has been a friend. The other countries, ASEAN countries or others, they are not material in terms of presenting that kind of a security challenge to us. So then I was thinking about this, and I said it's time to, lay out what my perspective is with regard to how we handle the core of our security challenges, and these are centered around these three countries.
Hmm.
The United States has, right from the start, been the biggest threat to our strategic interests because, as you know, we were under sanctions by them, and even in part we are under sanctions by them even now. But
Hmm.
we've been under very severe sanctions because of our nuclear and missile programs, right
Hmm.
from 1974, and then when we started our, missile program later. I recall myself, Ishkaran, when I was in Washington,
Hmm.
uh, I was told that officially that by the State Department that you should wind up your Prithvi program. We had just begun our
Okay.
missile program because it is highly destabilizing, because the time intervals are extremely short between India and Pakistan, and this will lead to a situation where the threat of nuclear um, standoff can become very, very real. Uh, and they're very clear about it. And secondly, and I'm talking officially now, I'm not talking in terms of simply
So this
analysis.
was not like off the cuff
No,
conversation
no,
or
no, no, no.
something. This was
We
their
deal with
official view being presented
this
to you in your official capacity.
in my official capacity. Secondly, that you always use the excuse of China as the reason why you are developing your nuclear
Hmm.
capability. We don't see that as a threat to you. But if you develop these capabilities, then China will become a threat, will target you. So I said, well, fine. Then why don't you apply this logic to China? Tell the Chinese, don't develop your nuclear capability
Hmm.
because we'll leave you alone. But if you develop your nuclear capability, we'll target you. So
Hmm.
why is it this logic is applied only to India and not to
Hmm. Hmm.
China? So they never really bought into our argument that we face China as a nuclear weapon state and we face Pakistan as a nuclear weapon state, and both have been collaborating and with each other. So we have a double security threat from the nuclear in of the nuclear dimension, which no other country faces. The third line of argument always has been, and this was uh, said officially, but far more in think tank uh, discussions and this and that. People were speaking on behalf of the State Department that that really speaking, it is because of you that Pakistan is developing its nuclear capability. So the best way to wean Pakistan away from its nuclear ambitions is for you to curb your nuclear ambitions. So, of course, I had my arguments. I won't repeat them here about Bhutto saying that I will eat grass.
So what, friends, I have started an English channel in which exclusive original content would be posted. Right now, this video is playing both on the Hindi as well as the English channel. So if you check, you will easily find the English channel, which is named as ISB English and which has been collaborated on this video with the main channel. So please, if you're interested in English videos, subscribe to that channel, as slowly exclusive English content will only be put on that channel and not on this channel. Thank you so much. Sir, I just wanted to ask you, what year was this when you were saying that because the timelines will be important?
No, because I was Shadid Affairs when I took over in Washington in 1992. And then, of course, an ambassador came a few months later, and then I was deputy chief of mission.
So this is 1992, sir.
Yeah, but I was the man who was dealing with these issues because the Siddharth Shankar Ray, the political ambassador, really no clue about these matters. So anyway, so after the India-US nuclear deal in 2005 and then in 2008 became official, yes, there has been a lifting of sanctions in some areas because, as you know, even in the India-US nuclear deal, the United States is barred from collaborating with India in our nuclear program. And it's not as if the doors have been opened in terms of transfer of core technologies, the nuclear the nuclear core. Yes, in terms of evacuation of electricity from the nuclear core, that means power stations and this and that, allied things to the nuclear power plant. There, yes, America is agreeable. If you look at the India-US nuclear deal, you know the plutonium separation plant. We are supposed to, if we build that independently, it has to be made in consultation with the United States and with the specifications that the Americans lay down. That is, if we are going to process the imported uranium in our processing plants built with foreign collaboration. Anyway, these are details which are may not hold us here. What I meant is that the sanctions continue. They are not at all helping in technology in our missile program. Yes, in the space program they're collaborating, but not in terms of our DRDO military missile program and this and that. Anyway, then as I have pointed out in my article, you know, we have they've never really given up using Pakistan as amongst other things. That's not the sole reason why they support Pakistan, but as a lever against India. Now, again, I'm talking about my official conversations, where whenever the papers they gave us, they always introduced the concept of strategic balance in the subcontinent, which really meant that India should not become far too strong and dominate Pakistan to that to beyond a certain extent. So when you talk about a strategic balance, you're talking about strategic capacities. So when you're talking about strategic capacity, you're talking about nuclear and missile capacities. Now, if you're talking about strategic balance, which means that Pakistan can legitimately develop nuclear and missile capacity from whichever source, so that the strategic balance in the subcontinent is not disturbed. Now, United States itself, especially after the nuclear deal and our own relations, the way they have developed, obviously would be cautious about openly building up Pakistan's military capabilities, although they will not go into their missile and nuclear capabilities, but they let China do it. They let China do it. Because China becomes the instrument of strategic stability in the subcontinent. So Now, if you remember when we signed the nuclear deal in 2005, uh,
mm,
immediately, virtually the day after, Bush
mm,
made Pakistan a non-NATO ally of the United States of America.
mm,
And now, later on, when India became a major defense partner, now Pakistan
mm,
has become a major defense partner. Uh, they keep sustaining their F-16 program, knowing
mm,
very well that F-16s are not meant for terror, for
mm,
terror, for
mm,
for anti-terrorism, counter-terrorism activity. It is actually to give Pakistan a certain degree of aerial capability to counter
mm,
India.
mm,
Now, when it comes to our relationship with Russia, as you've seen in recent months,
mm, mm,
uh, they have both United States and Europe, of course, have been asking us to reduce our defense ties with Russia. Now, China has become the biggest defense partner of Pakistan by far. They have now
mm,
started acquiring somebody. There's talk about acquiring their J-35, if at all that happens. But they
mm,
are they have acquired JF-10 and JF-7
mm,
17 from China, and God knows what else in terms of missiles and other things. In fact, one of the missiles they fired against us, they landed in India, and we've been able to look at
mm.
it. They've given them the missile capabilities like to be used by the Air Force, etc., etc. But have you ever heard any American responsible politician or State Department official saying that Pakistan should reduce its defense ties with China? Why is
Mm,
it that they want us to reduce our defense ties with Russia, uh,
mm,
not ask Pakistan to reduce defense ties with China, though they have many more means of pressuring Pakistan to do so,
yeah.
uh,
Mm, mm,
especially as Pakistan is on an IMF drip and they
mm,
can use that
mm.
leverage to force Pakistan. They don't do it. Now,
So,
they never, I just completed, they have
uh,
never objected to the CPEC. Have you ever heard them
mm,
saying that
mm,
CPEC is a threat to Indian Ocean security
mm, mm,
because it gives access to China to the
mm,
Arabian Sea? Or they have spoken against Gwadar and the
mm,
potential of China offering a naval base to China. I don't
mm,
know whether in private or all they say these things or they don't say things, but publicly they don't say anything. On the contrary, as we have seen, uh, Trump is now lionizing Channel Muni and Pakistan and Shahbaz Sharif,
mm,
and Vance goes there and says, "I love Pakistan," etc., etc. Anyway,
mm,
so this is the point I was making: the U.S.-China Pakistan nexus
mm,
is is critical for our security. Now, how we handle this, what are the ways to reduce these threats? How do we maintain our uh, how we protect our security in the longer term? These are really challenges that India
mm.
has to.
Sir, this, if I may use the word, unholy alliance between US in a sense, allowing it, and China and Pakistan deepening not only their military ties, but as you said, infrastructure ties, export defense ties. But the fundamental thing, sir, which is very interesting to notice, as early as early 90s, what is the reason that they do not link India with China? Because China was not that strong that time. Even now, China is their bigger threat, and they don't use India as a counterweight to China, but they want India to be tied to Pakistan and Pakistan as a counterweight to India. India is in that sense not such a big threat to them that they want India to be tied down and China to have a larger role in the region. So, what is the mindset there?
Well, the mindset is this that when Clinton reached out to China, it was reaching out to which country? A communist state,
Mm,
and a Maoist communist state.
mm,
And the alternative was what? The democratic India?
mm,
But India was under sanctions. In fact, Clinton took the lead after our nuclear test to impose sanctions on us and force other countries to impose sanctions to us. So they chose clearly between a communist authoritarian state, as they would say today, and a
mm,
Maoist led country
mm,
against a democratic state like India, despite all these talks of values and democracy and
mm,
freedoms and stuff like that.
mm,
Because they've always had in mind that China is a huge economic prize, massive, massive market. Uh, and China, of course, played its cards very, very astutely. Uh, was far more welcoming in terms of Americans and American
mm,
expertise and American investment,
mm,
and the whole process of decision making, land acquisition, this and that, capacity to scale, uh, offer very cheap labor, as a result of which American manufacturing companies, American corporations started shifting their base to China. So did the Germans, so did the Japanese, so many, all the
mm,
allies of the United
mm,
States started doing that.
mm,
And China became a formidable power. Uh,
mm,
India didn't offer the same opportunities to the United States. We have a very different system. There are real checks and balances within the system, political
mm,
checks and balances, the whole election cycles, lobbies within India, our federal
mm,
structure. There are certain structural weaknesses which do not allow us to take quick decisions, and then the
mm,
courts intervene on everything, and the whole thing
mm,
gets delayed. And then we are very, uh, because of having been colonized the way we were, the East India Company and stuff.
mm,
There is a mindset that these fellows are there to make the Mickey out of you and exploit you.
mm,
They're not
mm,
loyal to you.
mm,
One, and we must not actually become their prisoners in every way. To some
mm,
extent, we are helpless. We have to do
mm,
it because we
mm,
need technology and investments and their goodwill and
mm,
etc. etc. And we need good political relations
mm,
with them. But where the
mm,
bureaucracy can resist, they
mm,
resist. Anyway, that is one. That is one reason. The second reason is that India never played U.S. game against China. I mean, we were one amongst the first countries that recognized the communist China, uh, and we wanted an independent approach to China.
mm,
We uh, we uh, we had this phase of indigene, bye bye, and everything else.
mm,
Uh,
mm,
at a time when Pakistan was very serviceable, they were gave them bases. They were part of their military
mm,
alliance. They were
mm,
playing the game, and then, of course, as you know,
mm,
Kissinger in 1972
mm,
or whatever it was, when he went to China, it was Pakistan that had engineered that, and they were very
mm,
grateful that Pakistan had played the role, set of confidence in Pakistan as a useful intermediary, as a useful tool, which they
mm,
can manage. Because at the end of the day, uh, they knew that Pakistan has to rely on them for their security vis-a-vis India, because Pakistan, on its own, could
mm,
not stand up to India. So they
mm,
felt that they had control over Pakistan. See, what surprises me is that the Americans have been comfortable with Pakistan relations with China.
mm,
They have not
mm,
seen China's increasing role and relationship with China as a threat to their
mm,
equity. See,
mm,
China came into the Pakistan game after 1962. When they
mm,
1963 they signed the they signed the border agreement, so called, and handed over
mm,
Shaksgam Valley to China. And
mm,
then over time, as you know, China gave them nuclear weapon technology, missile technology.
mm,
Frankly, when I was there in Washington,
mm.
raising these matters with the with the United States, and was not getting any satisfactory response at all. At all.
That was while China is supplying and enabling them to become a
Yeah.
missile or a nuclear power, and US was turning a deaf ear.
No, 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 no. So the pressure was on us, not on what Pakistan was doing vis-a-vis China. And as I said, the line of argument was that China, we don't believe that China is a threat to you, but you use this as an excuse to develop
Mm.
your own nuclear program. Believe that as it may.
Sir, how could China not be a threat when we had a 62 war? This is after the war, where we have a live border dispute, but for them, they would not
You see,
deliberately admit that China is a threat. When we have had a war also with
Ishkaran,
China.
when they are developing these massive ties with China, uh, then how can they tell us officially in conversations with us, yes, we know that China is a threat to you. I mean, if they did that, they're undermining their own diplomacy. Then we'll come back to them and say, look,
mm,
you are admitting that China is a threat. So then do something about it. So the
mm,
line of argument is China is not a threat because China and United States were hunky dory. They're going ahead, and from their point of view,
mm,
uh, getting their corporations were getting a huge
mm,
bonanzas
mm,
in China. And today, if
mm,
China has is what it is, uh,
mm,
they have. I must give them credit. They have used all the support that they got from the West to very systematically build up independent capacities now,
mm,
technological capacities, which are now posing a big challenge to the United States. But if you come to today,
mm,
what is the problem? Because the United States now sees that China has become a peer power. They've
mm,
officially admitted that.
mm,
Now, then what happens? During the Cold War, they avoided a direct conflict with the Soviet Union
mm,
because the Soviet Union is very strong.
mm,
Now, therefore, by the same logic, they will avoid a direct conflict with China. That doesn't mean that they will not compete with China, take
mm,
advantage wherever they can,
mm,
put pressure on China, uh, develop
mm,
ties as they're doing. Their presence in the West Asian, West Pacific area, their military alliances, their Seventh Fleet, uh, or Sixth Fleet or whatever, Seventh Fleet. Uh, the They have huge bases and military deployments in that area. They're strengthening ties with Philippines, etc.,
mm,
etc. They will do all that, but they want to avoid a direct conflict with China. That's why they've been advocating very strongly military to military talks
mm,
with China, so that at the level of the two militaries,
mm,
they can establish some guardrails which would prevent an actual conflict from erupting over the Taiwan issue.
mm,
Uh, so, and Trump has carried that logic more openly further, which is why he's lost interest in the Indo-Pacific. He's lost interest in Quad.
mm,
He
mm,
keeps praising Xi Jinping,
mm,
wonderful chap he is. I get along famously with him.
mm, mm,
All that stuff. He went to China, nothing much came out of it in concrete terms, but
mm,
he is willing to find some accommodation with China globally, which is why in Beijing he mentioned the G2. And then when
mm,
meeting the Prime Minister at Avion in France, he
mm,
said, I'm meeting Prime Minister now. Uh, we are going to meet again in G20 in United
mm,
States, and there's going to be a G2. You know what is a G2? So he mentioned the G2 in front of our own Prime Minister. So he has, and Obama in any case, as you know, who was offering a G2 was to China. So uh, United States, yes, they see China as a threat to their preeminence, global preeminence,
mm,
but they're also realistic enough to know
mm,
that they cannot take the risk of a military confrontation with China, and therefore will have to accommodate China's strategic interests in Asia uh, as much as possible, and they will not. They will try and use India as a pressure point,
mm, mm,
but not actually shape their China policy because of India's concerns.
mm.
The
Well,
second let's
they're,
complete. The second
mm,
point in this is that when it comes to our land threat from China,
mm, mm,
we don't want to involve the United States.
mm, mm,
So yes, a little bit of cold weather equipment, some intelligence information.
mm,
That's important, but that's neither here nor there. We don't want. That's why we are having how many dialogues have we had, military
mm,
and diplomatic dialogues with China.
mm,
Uh,
mm,
we are keeping our trade doors with China open. In fact, the
mm,
trade has gone up to $150 billion now. Uh,
mm,
so we are following an independent course. Now they know that they cannot use India as a kind of a tool in the larger framework of their China
mm,
policy. When they blow hot, they want India. They would want India to blow hot. When they blow
mm,
cold, they would want India to blow cold. We are not in that game. We are not going to let our China policy be determined by
mm,
the fluctuations of U.S.
mm,
strategic interests or their policy.
mm,
which is why you have this, which is an answer to your question.
mm,
Then why is it that they don't see, by our argument over China being a threat?
mm. Sir, but their official recently said we want India to grow, but we don't want it to become a second China. So, in that sense, in their mind, somehow perfect level they want to place India at that you grow, but there is a growth which is contained in the square we draw for you. And the second aspect that I want, it may be simplistic to say, but then it appears that when China was a ideological threat, communism was rampant in the world till the case for it fell apart with the USSR. That time, Pakistan was willing to allow itself to be used against both Russia as well as China. So Pakistan, in that sense, gained. And when China started emerging, it because of being a dictatorship or a communism country, it became easier for the capitalists to acquire land and cheap labor. So then, for them, in that sense, it was easier for American capitalism to deal with China. So we suffered on both ends in that sense when it comes to our relationship with US. But is there some space forward now where we can counter with China?
What you said is right in terms of an empirical analysis. But on the other hand, just look at all those countries who handed over their security to the United States. How has that panned out? In fact, they are in much worse position than we are, despite some of the things that you've said. Look at
Mm,
Europe now.
mm.
They're feeling orphaned. They don't know what to do. The cracks are appearing.
Entire West Asia, sir. Entire West Asia as a safe destination has collapsed.
Yeah, look at that. There's so many American bases, but they were blown up by which country? Country like Iran, under sanctions for decades. It's
Mm,
amazing how they develop these capacities under
mm,
sanctions. Huh?
mm,
And now the Gulf countries don't know what to do, who to rely on their security.
mm, 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 mm,
So, Pakistan, have they
mm,
gone to the IMF, what, the 30th time or God knows
mm,
what? Huh? And look at the dose they get is UAE says give us back 3.2 billion.
mm,
They are in
mm,
a crisis mode, so Saudi Arabia says,
mm,
okay, we'll give you $3.2 billion.
mm,
I mean,
mm,
supposing these things would happen in India, would we have any self-respect left as a country? Look at what our intellectual class and our policy-making people would feel about this. We're a
mm,
wretched, third-rate country
mm,
which blows with the wind that
mm,
comes from.
mm, mm,
This is the state of relations that
mm,
this is the state in which these countries are so-called
mm,
allies.
mm,
Who yes, I mean, in some ways they did, but on the whole, I think,
mm,
despite all the problems we have,
mm,
despite the feeling that we may have missed a boat here and there,
mm.
and maybe we did in some ways or the other, but I think at the end of the day, we've not done badly. We could have done
Yes.
better, but we've not done badly.
Yes, I wasn't suggesting that we become like one of those countries. In a sense, then you're a colony. If you have military bases of a country like US, you are effectively going to be a colony, whether you admit it or not. And we had that experience which you were mentioning earlier, that in the back of our mind, East India Company and capitalism must have been there from 47 till at least 70s or till maybe 90s, because that and you were there dealing with these issues, because back of the mind, sir, it can re-happen, has to be there in the mind of the policymakers that if we allow these big companies to come in. But sir, with Russia now, which is the major part, they are again threatening sanctions. Then they're saying a bill is being passed which will not be as far as earlier suggested of 500%. But they are unhappy with India taking, and now India supplying back to Russia also. So what? But Russia also has good ties with China. So where is India's space to counterbalance it for our national security? Where do you think are the openings or the room or the adjustments that need to be made?
You see, President Putin has said publicly more than once that we do not and do not intend to interfere in India's relations with China. If we can be helpful, fine. But these are two major countries, and basically they know how to deal with each other. So now, if that is the logic, that Russia will maintain independent ties with India and will not allow the China factor to stand in the way of whatever reasonably can be done in terms of strengthening India-Russia ties in the new situation that is arising. Uh, on our side, uh, we have to take the same attitude. There's nothing we can do uh, with regard to Russia-China relationship. Number two, these are contiguous countries. They have a shared border, so they have capacities to cooperate with each other, which we don't have with Russia since we don't have a shared border. Um China is highly dependent on imported energy. Uh, Russia is a powerhouse in terms of energy, and since it has been blocked westwards, so the
Hmm.
natural thing to do for them for survival is to go
Hmm.
eastwards. So
Hmm.
they've gone eastwards.
Hmm.
Uh, China, of course, is playing their own cards very ably from their
Hmm.
point of view because they also have Central Asia as a source of energy. So they bargaining very hard with Russia. So everything is not hunky dory when it comes to Russia-China relationship. But I think both countries understand that if one goes down because of United States and NATO, the other will also go down. So both have a combined interest in ensuring that the US writ, which has been running large and unchallenged for so many years, has to be countered. And US and Russia and China have a common interest in resisting that and finding ways and means of working outside the US dominated global financial system and the dollar system, which they're doing. Uh, Russia is doing much more, but China is also doing to the extent it can. It can't do it entirely because it's such a huge trade with the United States of America. So they're obliged to deal with dollars. But Russia has virtually no trade with the United States, and therefore they don't have that compulsion. Uh, so, uh, number one, that we have to take this in our stride that Russia China ties are a reality. But we have the confidence that Russia will not stab us in the back because of pressures from China, because at the end of the day, the history of their own relations is not very smooth either. Number two, uh, India is an Asian country. We should not forget the Asian country. We should not forget that. I mean, it's all right. We have very much now tuned towards the West and what might be called Western countries in general, like Australia. But we are an Asian country, and therefore we must have a foot in Asia. We cannot allow China and Russia to monopolize the entire Eurasian space, the, which is why it's very, very important. BRICS is very important, but SCO is very important uh, because we want to be able to oversee developments in the region and make sure that our interests are also taken into account, though we don't have the same power behind us to impose our interests like maybe China can. But nevertheless, these countries also, Central Asian countries, want to have other options. They want to bring India in, but there are some logistical issues and problems, um, because of these are landlocked countries and this and that. So, uh, and then our presence in BRICS and SCO and these non-West organizations uh, help us to uh, widen our options so that we are not over reliant on the United States and Europe and the West in general. And they also, when they do their own sums, like we do, and do our thinking as to how we should shape our uh, policies, they have also taken into account that if they push India too far in a certain direction, that India can move in a direction they don't want India to move. They want India to be retained in their large orbit, though they know that India will never be very much or exclusively part of the orbit, but to the extent that maintain a country like India, the most populous country in the world,
Hmm.
the fastest rising big economy, huge prospects ahead, huge human talent,
Hmm.
uh, and increasing military strength,
Hmm.
and digital space and everything else, our capacity to scale up the research
Hmm.
and most advanced technologies. So they are seeing the diminution of their own strength.
Hmm.
And now even countries like Germany, France, Britain, and all, they call themselves middle powers. That great powers, despite France and Britain being members of the permanent members of the Security Council, they now admit that they are middle powers.
Hmm.
They realize that they have, I mean,
Hmm.
70 million population, 80 million. They
Hmm.
can't compete with the giants of Asia.
Hmm.
So they like to keep us in their orbit. Uh, so this gives us a certain margin for maneuver. That if you push us too hard, we can keep
Hmm.
widening our options in the
Hmm.
non-West dominated global sphere.
Hmm. Hmm.
So this is the art of the balance on
Hmm.
both sides, and this is how we have to play it.
So, for example, the Russian oil, there were rumors that we had stopped buying. Then it came out that in June we have bought almost 45-50% from Russia. And because of Ukraine drone attacks, now the finished product also we are sending back. So it's become a two-way trade in that sense because of Ukraine attacks. So do you see, sir, for America, ostensibly that's been their biggest point for Europe at least, that 2022 they used to say you're financing the war in Russia. It used to be something which needed to be answered and was answered. So do you think that will again restart from a European perspective, even after we had mother of all deals with Europe? It was billed as that. So in a sense, Europe has also deepened ties with India, but Russia in European mind is an existential threat. It always feels Russia can swallow Europe. So, you think there would be a dynamic of Europe also getting involved in India-Russia ties in that sense?
Well, they tried, but it didn't succeed. Uh, the uh, we have been much more susceptible to U.S. pressure
Mm.
because of the exposure of our private sector companies to the U.S. financial system and the reluctance of the government to give any precise directive to our public sector companies to buy or
Mm.
not buy
Mm.
Russian oil, and finding a, a course of action which gives a lot of flexibility, that you buy the cheapest from the market. Let the market forces determine who,
Mm.
who you will buy from, etc., etc. But uh, and we have now, as you know, increased fairly significantly our energy purchases from the
Mm.
United States
Mm. Mm.
uh, as a kind of a soft to them, that look,
Mm.
the way to handle this issue
Mm.
is not to impose sanctions on India, but look
Mm.
at what we can do together in the energy sphere, which would, in any case, start reflecting on how much we do with others, including Russia. That kind of a thinking and approach.
Mm. Mm.
Uh, but I think we'll be faced with a quandary if and when this legislation goes through, and the
Mm.
threat of 100% tariffs.
Mm.
China will, of course, their spokesperson already has made a statement
Mm.
saying that that you're not going to determine what our policies in this regard would be,
Mm.
and it is all illegal. It doesn't have the sanction of the UN Security Council.
Mm.
Uh, we will let's see how we play it. I think we'll make Russia extremely unhappy if actually
Mm.
we substantively lowered the volume of our oil purchases from Russia. We have to be careful about that. Uh,
Also, so that will crush our economy. We are already facing high prices. We have a movement going on against ethanol blending. I'm not getting into the technical details of that. So already in the public, there is this issue that prices are too high. Rupee is going downward slide. So if you don't buy from Russia, that would also have a consequence. So even domestically, it will not be very easy for the government not to purchase cheap oil from Russia.
I agree, and in the kind of scenario that is building up uh, in the Middle East, in the West
Mm.
Asia,
Mm.
with the blockade of Iranian oil and everything else.
Mm. Mm.
Uh, I think it is vital for us to maintain our access to Russian oil.
Mm.
And at some stage, yes, our private sector, I don't know what they'll do, because the Americans are, in fact, their entire ploy of selling us Venezuelan oil to the Ambani and this and that is to wean the Ambanis away from Russian oil,
Hmm.
because that's also heavy crude
Hmm.
from Venezuela.
Hmm.
In the past, the refinery, Ambani's refineries have, Reliance has been processing Venezuelan crude. Uh, so there is this dirty game that is going on by the Americans. Uh, but if a Trump administration is determined to deliver a severe body blow to our relations with the United
Hmm.
States, which will have long-term consequences, they can do it. But here, as you know, in this legislation, first of all, we don't know how and when it'll
Hmm.
pass, but
Hmm.
there is a waiver clause.
Hmm.
So, like the Katsa business, so the
Hmm.
Trump will use that waiver clause to get
Hmm.
further concessions from us on agriculture or whatever in the trade deal. I mean, he's a ruthless man.
Hmm.
So they can do that, um, and force us to buy more American oil, saying, "Okay, I'll give you a waiver, but you buy more from us." So that second objective is also served, or buy
Hmm.
more Venezuelan oil, because all the proceeds from the Venezuelan oil go to the U.S. Treasury.
Hmm. Hmm.
So uh, and so they'll put us in a difficult situation. Uh, and then the trade deal that we are negotiating,
Hmm.
we just got stuck because of the Section 301
Hmm.
12.5% of tariffs they want to impose on us.
Hmm.
That will become a total sideshow if they impose 100% tariffs on India for buying Russian oil. In what circumstances politically can India negotiate a trade deal with the United States?
Even, sir, what you suggested, he may put pressure on agriculture. That also domestically is not going to be easy. Anything on agriculture. I'm not even getting into what, but any sort of thing on agriculture is going to be explosive. Sir, but towards the end, I want to, in the end, cover Pakistan because we started with Pakistan. No matter whether it's on a drip by IMF, no matter whether it is collapsing within, US has again propped it up. There's a Singapore diplomat saying that even if US has propped it up, that's not going to give you food or oil or water, right? So the crisis stays, but it is always an irritant to India and sometimes more than an irritant. There was just this statement by a US designated terrorist saying, तुमने हमारा पानी रोका हम तुम्हारी सांस रोकेंगे Harisda. So sir, with Balochistan becoming an explosive situation where Baloch fighters keep declaring independence or capturing towns, POJK burning, Afghanistan having an issue with Pakistan, do you think it is time for India to, or do you think India has the option, bandwidth in the international situation of doing something decisive in Pakistan, which reduces the Pakistani threat, or would it always be a threat earlier used by US, now by China also? So this Pakistan is not going anywhere as a threat perception for India.
The point is that if you want to do anything, it has to be done extremely discreetly, but
Mm,
in the shadows, and there should be no linkages drawn between what we do and uh, and what is happening on the ground. The deniability is extremely important. Pakistan has profited from this deniability for a long time, even when they are manifestly they are involved in terrorist attacks in India. They say, "Give us proof, give us proof," uh, and the world buys it
mm,
because it's very convenient diplomatic
mm,
shield for them. They condemn the terrorist act,
mm,
but they say, they cast doubt on the fact whether Pakistan was behind it or not behind
mm,
it, kind of thing.
mm,
So it's difficult for me to give you a straight answer on this, but
mm.
I would say that if you are willing to do something, if you are capable of to do something, we should do it. But then there are two things that we have to keep in mind. One is that China is deeply invested in Pakistan. They are physically present in the Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir. There
Mm,
is the Karakoram Highway. They have their PLO people involved in projects in that area. The CPEC goes through there. So as I have said in one of my articles,
mm,
that in fact, irrespective of Oxygen and a problem with China in the dark, actually
mm,
China has become effectively a third party on the ground in our issue with Pakistan over J&K. So now we hear that China is developing a road from Shakshaban Valley uh, towards the uh, towards our Siachen side, and we are a bit concerned about what it may mean in terms of
Mm,
protecting our equities in in that area. Uh, so we have to be a little uh, cautious uh, about that, but that doesn't prevent us
mm,
from backing what's happening in POJ and K.
mm,
On the diplomatic front, nothing prevents us from raising these issues in a big way in the
mm,
United Nations and in all other forums, and generally
mm,
being very, vocal about what is happening there.
mm,
Now, the downside of this is that the more vocal we become, the more Pakistan will then say that India is behind this and
mm,
delegitimize the
mm,
movements in PO, J and K, saying that
mm,
all Indian studies they're doing it on behalf of India. So where to find that right balance, we have to see. Balochistan,
mm,
similar considerations would be there. Now, United States buddies of Trump, they want to invest in rare earths in Balochistan, so they have a vested interest there.
mm,
But the Baluch thing is old. I mean, POGNK is a very recent thing where they
mm, mm,
erupted in the way it has.
mm,
But the Balochistan thing is going on since a long, long time. The manner
mm,
in which, in fact, Musharraf used artillery to
mm,
Bukti is shocking.
mm, mm.
Uh, China is very nervous about Gwadar because of this Balochistan thing. Uh, so uh, I think we are doing the right thing.
Mm.
I don't know how to. I don't want to spell it out, but I think we are doing the right thing in in welcoming the Taliban because for independent reasons they can be a pretty destabilizing force for Pakistan.
So, but in that sense, isn't Taliban the easiest because it's a separate country, a historically separate country? POJK or Balochistan, both, in a sense, directly you can't do anything. Afghanistan, you can keep sending medicines. Now, medicines can be of any sort, can be put to any use, and whatever you can send with an independent country, you can deal in an independent manner, and nobody can, in that sense, stop you because when you are sending aircrafts directly or anything directly, who's going to inspect the crates, if I may say it like that? But at least you can officially have a relationship. And Afghanistan has decided that it is, in a sense, waging war with Pakistan. So
Well,
isn't that
actually,
the easiest option?
I don't think we need. No, I don't think we need to do that. Look at the kind of weaponry the Americans left behind in Afghanistan. They don't need that kind of stuff from us. Uh, what they may what they may need is political support, uh, uh, some kind of intelligence support. Now, I don't know whether we should do it or not do it. It's not my domain.
Mm,
But as an Indian citizen
mm,
who's totally fed up with this country, which has been hostile and inimical to us
mm,
all these years,
mm,
they should be paid back in some way or the other. And especially this, General Bajwa, if reports are correct,
mm,
opposed the elevation of Asim Munir as ISI chief,
mm,
saying that he's a psychopath.
mm,
And now that psychopath, if this report is true,
mm,
has become the field marshal of Pakistan.
mm, mm,
A dangerous fellow,
mm.
dangerous fellow. So, if something can be done uh, to take the air a little bit out of his balloon, uh,
Mm.
it might not be a bad thing. Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you, sir, for your time and covering all this. And also, very important to understand this access in a sense of US allowing and China getting deeper and deeper into Pakistan, which is a genuine, real, present threat to Bharat. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure.